The following episode of the Carnival of Randomness is sponsored by an important message to you, the people, from Upsitnik and Associates. Every day there are forces that are taking from you, stealing from you. Your money, your time, your freedom. Immense faceless corporations, banks, credit card companies, insurance providers, government agencies, this list goes on and on. When you are under attack and facing crisis, turn to us, Upsitnik and Associates, attorneys for you, the people. When every day becomes a battle, we can advise and assist. We have been advocates for 40 years. Email us through upsitnikslaw.com or call us at 1-866-391-3299 or reach out to us through Upsitnik and Associates on Facebook for a prompt, no obligation communication and consultation. Don't be pushed around. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Carnival of Randomness. And yes, we're still your antidote for nerd culture. In times of great crisis, one turns to the words of the great philosophers. So for this, I would like to turn to the wise Mr. Slim Pickens from the movie Blazing Saddles. What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? And that kind of leads in because we are going to be talking what in the wide, wide world of sports, but more along the lines of those leagues that some of us may remember from yesteryear that aren't with us anymore, the old defunct sports leagues, and talk about maybe the future of some sports leagues. Rob is with me.
Hello, and I have a little background in this actually because, yes, look it up, and if I find it, I'll put it on our website. My dad played semi-pro football for a New York football league that's no longer on. He was with the Seneca Blackhawks.
See, and it's those semi-pro leagues in Pennsylvania, Johnny Unitas.
And I remember, I have memories of going to Hollanders Stadium, which itself is defunct now. It's an industrial park.
Oh, they killed it?
Yeah, it's gone. It's like a little, but that was, you would go to Hollanders Stadium, and I will mention it, it will come up again probably, but we would go see semi-pro football, which was fun. I remember the Wildcats, but my dad started out with the Seneca Blackhawks, and if we ever find him, I'll put him up.
We've got to find it. I'll do some
there's a picture of him with the good old helmet without the face mask. Yeah. And he was 150 pounds, and he was a center. And I remember I played football once against him, and he punched me right in the nuts when we started. So he knew how to play in those days.
Yeah. Oh, the nut punches. But yeah, how many leagues have you seen back in your time of watching sports that are no longer with us? There was a couple.
I think I've heard of them a lot, and more than I've seen them, but I have seen some. One of the ones, I'm going to pull this one out of left field because we don't really think about it as much as soccer. And there was the North American Soccer League, and it was big in the time because...
It was very recent, wasn't it?
There might be more. This was one in the 70s. What they tried to do is get together and build a super team called the New York Cosmos.
Okay, I remember hearing about that.
And this had the great Pelé.
Oh, Pelé.
But it also had Ricky Davis, who was probably at the time the most renowned U.S. soccer player.
I think so, yeah.
And my connection with him is my one prize in grade school. I won a raffle and I won a Ricky Davis soccer ball. Huh. So Ricky Davis, but he's on Giorgio Canaglia, Franz Beckenbauer.
Yeah. I actually, because there was a North American Soccer League, I think, in the past decade.
And we had our Rochester Lancers.
Yep, the Rochester Lancers.
Where did they play at? Hollanders Stadium.
Oh.
And you could watch WWR, you could catch the Cosmos games. And I honestly couldn't name probably any other team in the league except those two.
Nope.
But the Cosmos were the big draw. They would be the one where they would go around. I still remember for Hollanders Stadium, I lived in Gates, and it was a little bit, you could walk to Hollanders Stadium, but it was little ways. When the Cosmos played the Lancers, cars, we had a drive-in at the time, and it was Ridge Road. You went down Ridge, got to Hollander. Cars were literally all the way down to us. It was so packed.
Man.
Well, Pele, back in the...
Well, Pele, I mean, even to this day, he's still a draw.
But then, and they've tried many soccer league. There was the indoor soccer league.
Yeah, that lasted for a cup of coffee.
There was a league we had here, and I know this is from local stuff, because my friend Rob and I used to have a joke about going to Rochester Flash games. There was the Rochester Flash.
Yeah, they had a cup of coffee in existence.
And then we have whatever, the Rhinos who pop in and out. Is there a league? Sometimes you could feel the team.
Well, the Rhinos, I think, up until their hiatus, were in the USL, the United Soccer League, I believe it was.
Soccer believe it or not, has been around a lot in America, because I never realized my Uncle Art, who passed away at age 95 in 2015, he played soccer in high school. So it was around.
And let us not forget, the term soccer is an English term.
Yeah.
It was invented by an Englishman. So all this, oh, it's not soccer, it's football. Bullshit. It's soccer. You invented it. Shut up.
Yeah. So that's why I'm starting with soccer, because I think the problem with that in the States is it's still not a sport. I know for the world, I actually got into watching a bit of the World Cup because I actually lived with an English girl for a while, and that was the year England was in the World Cup, was doing very well. It was around 2006, so I constantly heard the England win a World Cup and Wayne Rooney and everybody. Yeah, but I got into it in the 1990s because for a while I got into watching Germany and all these others. And they try in America.
Well, I think the problem is there's too many other sports it has to compete with.
I think partly it's the idea, too, is we like winners. And America is always, okay, you're not even going to be in the World Cup. One year Italy's not in the World Cup.
Right.
People are freaking who are Italian because it's disgraceful. I couldn't go to my mechanics. I heard. Yeah. But America, your soccer.
Well, that's the thing, because, like I say, there's too many other sports to compete with.
I think more it's women's soccer for the Olympics and everything.
And like it or lump it, NASCAR is the second most popular spectator sport in the United States.
It is, and I had a friend when he moved where he worked used to say it's amazing how huge this is, and it is.
It
and
really
I
is.
Couldn't think of any. You know why we're on the topic? Have there been? I don't know enough about it. Are there any defunct racing leagues?
I don't think so, at least not in the United States. I mean, the NASCAR's been around since, I believe, the 40s.
40s, because didn't NASCAR start almost because of, like, those whiskey runners?
Yeah, they're bootleggers.
They were Junior Johnson running around North Carolina.
Who actually got an official pardon, 50 years after the fact. But, no, NASCAR came about as a result of bootleggers with their souped-up cars. They wanted to prove to each other who had the fastest cars, so they would kick tracks in the dirt and make a racetrack, but then the first one was North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
But for the topic, the only thing I've ever been to is actually by that racetrack we go by if we're driving to Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. And we used to go see Spencer Speedway.
Yeah, Spencer
We used to go see drag racing. One of my friends' fathers was a gearhead. He used to even build cars. We would get headaches and cry because it was so damn loud.
Demolition
But these aren't sports leagues that are defunct.
No.
But I want to bring one thing up, too. This is related. I was going to bring some historical leagues up, but I was also going to say it's amazing these days you don't think about, like, take a lot of our sports, how big they are on the international scene.
I think the most surprising one for me is probably basketball.
Well, baseball for me, because for me, you go to London, you go to England, what do you think of? You think of soccer, you think of cricket, you think of a lot of things. You don't think of baseball.
No, or hockey.
Or hockey.
There's actually a British hockey league.
Hockey's another one where that's more Canadian. You have to give it to Canada.
These days,
there are more American teams in the U.S. South than there are in Canada and the NHL.
Right.
But these are international. You go all over there. Israel has a baseball team and a hockey team.
Yeah.
Japan has a hockey team.
Israel has basketball as well.
Yeah.
You go to Turkey, they have baseball and basketball.
Yeah.
Most of the Asian, the Southeast Asian countries.
A lot of people looked at the old idea of like money, because the idea being for soccer, what do you need? You need a ball, a little field.
Yeah.
But for basketball, say you get like a garbage can, you could stick it up and a little ball.
Or the old peach baskets.
Yeah,
going back to the beginning.
And I think that's the thing. For football, you need more equipment.
Football and hockey, you need such specialized equipment, and in the case of hockey, specialized surface.
Yeah.
That it's not as popular.
Well, you can do floor hockey.
Well, right. I mean, there's inline hockey. There's actually inline hockey leagues, roller hockey leagues.
And it helps if you live somewhere where it's really cold, so you can go on the ice and just play.
Yeah, like Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
Florida.
It's huge there, though.
I don't understand.
There is a joke from Slapshot. The whole idea of the movie was this woman was going to buy a team and bring it down to Florida because all the old people miss hockey, and everybody's wrong. That's why the Florida Panthers came into being.
Well, you have the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, all these.
Got biffed in the playoffs.
Yeah. I haven't been following playoffs.
Now, Penguins got 6.
But it's so weird, to think that there are less hockey teams in Canada than we have in the southern U.S.
But I was thinking, I think the first thing I think of when I think of defunct leagues, I think of baseball. And the first thing I was going to say for leagues that aren't defunct, if you want a piece of history, we have the Penn League up here.
Yeah, the New York Penn League. It is the single-A short season. So they play, 70-some games a year? 72 games a year.
June through August.
It is one of the lowest levels of minor league baseball. But it's one of the oldest. The New York Penn League is one of the older leagues. It's still
and
around.
A lot of these teams have. That's why I'm bringing these up, even if they're around still for International League, Penn League. A lot of these teams have a lot of history. A lot of people have come through. Rochester Red Wings, they're the Red Wings because they were the St. Louis Cardinals franchise. Yeah. We had a lot of big names in the Baltimore Orioles. We had a lot of big names come through
Cal
here.
Ripken, you saw.
Yeah, Silver Stadium. And everything is really historical. Some of the people who passed through, the Marty Marion, Stan Musial.
Yeah, and even more recent, Joe Mauer. Spent a cup of coffee in Rochester.
The M&M boys, they're both of them. But so there's pieces of history there, and the Penn League to me is just a neat thing. So
it is. Batavia Muck Dogs.
But
Go
going
Muck Dogs.
to our topic of defunct sports leagues, one of the ones I think of immediately is the Negro Leagues.
Yeah, and the Negro Leagues... Ooh, it's not PC, but that's
what they called it. It's like they called the other one was the All-Girls.
All-American Girls Professional Baseball
League. So we're not going to change the name and say all...
No, I'm not going to whitewash history. They were called the Negro Leagues, and they started real early. There was barnstorming teams back in the late 1800s even, but the Negro Leagues as they were with 1920 went until about the late 50s. Yeah. But at that time, they were more barnstorming because, obviously, we know when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier... Yeah. There was no need for the Negro Leagues.
No, it's cause and effect there because they were there for their purpose because you could not play in Major League Baseball, but when you could.
And actually, that's an interesting thing because that is why 6 white guys played in the Negro Leagues because they were running out of players. So they had to sign some white players.
Yeah.
And there's only one of them left alive, the gray cat, Lou Clarizio.
But one of the things that's not looked upon is how much respect the major leaguers had for them. You would go, remember, barnstorming, this was not taking a barn and knocking it down. This was, you would get in, a lot of times you get in your cars, and a lot of the major leaguers, you did not make $30 million for being a 200-inning shortstop like you do now. So what you would do to add to your income is after the season, you would go play pickup games essentially with teams.
Right.
And people like Babe Ruth.
I was going to say Lou Gehrig, I believe.
And Babe Ruth had so much they would play against the Negro Leagues.
Yeah.
And Babe Ruth had nothing but utter
I think especially for the late great Josh Gibson, who I think arguably is probably the greatest baseball player to ever have lived.
And that's Cool Papa Bell. Cool Papa Bell, how fast was he? He could turn out the lights and be at bed before it was dark.
That's right.
He could steal second on a bunt. He could bunt, get to third base.
Yeah. But, I mean, there was some amazing athletes. And you look at some of them that did come out of the Negro Leagues, the great Satchel Paige, the 40-year-old rookie in the Major League
and
Baseball.
Also at Willie Mays. Hank Aaron played for the Indianapolis Clowns.
Hank Aaron played for the Indianapolis
Monty
Clowns.
Irvin.
Don Newcomb, I believe.
Yes. Oh, yes, he was.
There's quite a few.
And there's many who were in there who never, because they were too old or they
died young. Josh Gibson.
Plus, also still with the whole element of racism. For example, for the Giants, when they had Monty Irvin and Willie Mays, they couldn't sign Aaron because they couldn't have 3 black guys.
Right, they had their quotas.
Yeah, so that.
But and we'll move slight sideways to the All-American Girls League. Brought to a lot of people's attention through the movie A League of Their Own, which is a great movie. The thing about that is, if you watch that movie, if you don't know the history of it, you kind of get the feeling that the All-American Girls League kind of ended after World War II. That's not the case, because that league actually folded in 1954.
Yeah.
So long after World War II was over. And yet it was still going on. But, interestingly enough, that's why a few women went and played in the Negro Leagues, because the All-American Girls League...
Well, then there's Mamie Peanut Johnson.
Yeah, she wanted to play for the All-American Girls League, but they wouldn't let her in.
And this was the thing...
Because she was black, so she ended up playing for the Indianapolis
Clowns. Because we do
Clowns.
like history, and we were talking one time about the Negro Leagues, and we were saying, who's this Mamie Peanut Johnson?
Yeah.
Who's he? Who's this guy?
Yeah, no.
Wait a second.
It turns out she was one of, I think, 3 or 4 women to play in the Negro Leagues, and probably the most dominant woman to play in the Negro Leagues.
I think her things retired by the Washington Nationals.
Yeah,
now.
then they had a few years ago they had the fantasy draft. All the teams went and drafted what they would consider the best Negro League players. And the Washington Nationals drafted Mamie Peanut Johnson. May she rest in peace. She died not that long ago.
And the problem with these is you hear all the stories, and there's many, many very good books on the league now, finally.
Yes.
And some people have painstakingly tried to get the stats. Tried, but it's so tough. So you're going to hear all these stories, and it's a case of what might have been. You can never tell.
Yeah.
Somebody might have been great there, and they might just not have played well in the majors. Or somebody might have set it on fire. It's one of those things in history where it has to lie where it is.
It is what it is.
But there's another league, and there's something about it. Maybe you know a little bit about it in baseball. It was the Mexican League.
I don't know much about
But there's
it, but I
something
remember
about it where if you played in there, you got suspended
yeah,
for some
they
reason.
called it. It was what in the 60s?
No, it was
or
before
50s?
that. Because Sel Magley, the barber,
Yeah, they called him.
played it. This was before Brutus Beefcake. Sel Magley was nicknamed the barber because he used to pitch really inside. He got suspended in the 40s for playing in Mexico for some reason.
Yeah, they called them the Outlaw Leagues, and my history on that era of the Mexican League isn't very good, but I just know of it.
Yeah.
That they were the Outlaw Leagues.
Yeah. But now they have, of course, like the winter ball. That's
they
not extinct.
No,
now.
they still have the Mexican leagues, but now there's Venezuelan winter ball, the Dominican summer leagues.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico has a bunch of leagues,
Oh, they're all over.
which, considering Roberto Clemente was Puerto Rican,
Yes.
they better have baseball leagues.
Oh, yeah. But the thing, jumping around a little, and I'll use the Rochester connection again, we'll talk about some in basketball a little bit. And we had one here. We had the Continental Basketball League, which is the CBA. And we had the Rochester Zenith. And the thing about towns, a lot of them, we're a mid-sized town. Some towns you're either for some sport or against it. We've always been a very big hockey town. No matter the Amerks could win 10 games, people would go see them. We've never, and it's when I lived in Albany for about a year, and I found out they were a big basketball town, but not a hockey town.
Yeah.
They had the Albany River Rats. We would go down. They would give tickets almost for free because nobody would come. Well, for the basketball games, it'd be huge. Nobody would come to the Zenith games. The Zeniths were very big here. They actually won the championship.
Yeah, they won
And
several.
we had
a
the
couple,
guy,
didn't they?
Probably, but nobody really cared.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. You have a winning team. And Mario Panaggio, the coach, recently passed. The only player of note that I remember was Larry Spriggs because he did some time on the LA Lakers. And that league folded.
Yeah, that one folded. Then it came back in a different iteration. The CBA, I think, is still around.
Yeah.
Just like the ABA. The original ABA folded in, or it joined the NBA. It was almost like a parallel league.
I may be wrong, but I think they pioneered the shot clock, maybe.
I believe they did.
But one thing you'll always remember then, a lot of your really good players came out of it. Some teams did, like San Antonio was one.
Yeah.
And Denver. But the thing about that league, too, is they tried to have a more wide open, and it's almost like, I'm going to make a weird analogy because it's us, huh? Sometimes these defunct sports leagues are like third-party candidates.
They are.
Where they come in, they do these rules, they fold, but then the main league goes, that league, that was
a good idea. So a lot of the ABA rules were adopted
Now, I'm
into the
very
NBA.
sad that the one they didn't take was they had the multicolored ball.
Oh, the red, white, and blue ball. That thing is, and that's still the logo of the modern day ABA.
And it's cool, though. I
American
remember that. But
Basketball
isn't that
Association.
cool, though? Because if you were watching, that would stand out to you.
Yeah, instead of just the orange ball that blended in with the orange floor.
And we're going to talk. This is sort of a defunct league, sort of not in basketball. But a lot of people don't realize, especially like in the 60s and 70s, playgrounds in New York, you became a legend on the field. You would do pickup games.
Yeah.
That's literally, if you ever see Goat, the Earl Manigault story, there was somebody who came out of these. He's considered the best player never to be in the NBA because he had all kinds of health and problems and other things. But Connie Hawkins, the Hawk, who's in NBA Hall of Fame, played in the ABA. They discovered him on the playground.
Yeah.
So imagine that doing a pickup game. And
That's the thing. Imagine playing a game with a guy who eventually would end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Who else? Oh, then there was... Because the NBA came about, I think, through a merger of a bunch of different leagues. It was originally in 1949, the Basketball Association of America merged with the National Basketball League to form the NBA, and then later they swallowed up the ABA.
Because really, wasn't it sort of like around the 50s where it really got its footing?
Yeah, because it was 1949 was then that happened, and
because that would be, for any of you, you would never picture this big dude with glasses, George Mikan. He was like the Jordan of his time with the
George
Minneapolis
Mikan.
Lakers.
I was going to bring up the Minneapolis Lakers.
First big guy.
He was. And the Minneapolis Lakers were the dominant team.
Yeah.
They won several, I think the very first, what they consider the official NBA championship.
And then John Kunlo just liked the States so much that when they moved to L.A.,
he wouldn't go.
He stayed to coach the University of Minnesota for years.
Yeah, he recently passed away at, 101 years old.
Yeah. Renowned for doing crossword puzzles,
and
playing bingo, and watching NBA playoffs at a nursing home in Minnesota.
But he was a legend. He is the basketball legend in Minnesota,
but
no doubt.
Certainly, if you go around to hockey, you can go to so many.
Well, in talking about hockey, and I kind of mentioned the parallel league. Let's talk about the WHA, the World Hockey Association.
I think Jack Davies, somebody founded it. He was born in 1927. He had a background in college hockey more than NHL, but he was the first president.
Yes, he did. Or he was, I should say. That was a league that, because you're talking, it wasn't long after, because what was it, the 70s? So 70s. It wasn't long after they expanded from the original 6.
Yeah, and a lot of people mess that up. They don't realize, like, teams like the Penguins.
Yeah, it was
they were not in the
No, like the Pittsburgh Penguins, the St. Louis Blues. There was, 4 or 5 others.
Yeah.
Minnesota North Stars, I think, came in then.
Well, they came a little later.
Yeah, but they all came in, or several teams came in.
Kansas City Scouts and a couple others.
In 1967.
And they all lumped them. They all lumped them in one playoff, so that's why you had, basically, it was a case of the old AFL against the NFL, where the St. Louis Blues would end up getting in the Cup Finals, getting whomped by the established teams.
But they were not WHA.
No, the Sabres.
Yeah, they actually came in before
but then we had the
was a thing. And, you're looking teams like, Edmonton?
Yeah.
Vancouver?
Hartford, good old Whale. Winnipeg.
And you had a lot of guys that were, I think, would be blackballed from the NHL because they jumped ship.
And a lot of them, what they tried to do, from my readings of the league, and they actually pulled, like, Gordie Howe out of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And they got Bobby Hull to a big deal. And I guess they had a lot of financial problems. So when they signed Bobby Hull for the Jets, everybody in the league anteed up some money because they wanted to get a star.
Yeah, and they got themselves a star with Bobby Hull.
And I regret to say, I've never really seen any games of theirs.
It was before my time, but there might exist some clips somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure they do for that, probably. I don't know if they were ever featured on TV or anything.
Don't know. They may have been.
But one thing I was going to actually dive into you have to understand how many leagues there were in hockey. There's a Federal League.
Oh, good
the Quebec League.
Well, let's just go down the list of some of the ones we've heard of. There was, or even that are around today. You have, the AHL, that's been around forever.
IHL.
The IHL, which is still around.
I think
no, the IHL went away in 2001.
Well, it's a lost league now, so
yeah. It's just so many. You had the CHL. You're talking guys like the people that played the Hanson brothers were playing in, the Northeast Hockey League, the North American Hockey League,
one,
the
if you ever
Continental
see,
Hockey
it's not
League,
a great
the Central
movie,
Hockey League.
but if you ever see the movie Youngblood, there's the scene where they play in the Quebec League and they got the big fencing as fans. I guess that league was renowned for being crazy.
I've heard, yeah.
But the thing was, if you go back to Slapshot, all these guys in the movies have colorful histories of some of these leagues.
One
guy was like, who was like the lead penalty league?
Well, I think it was Poodle. Was the league leader in penalty minutes in the ECHL?
Not Poodle.
Or it was either, which one of them in the movie was banned for life? Was it Poodle?
Was it Gilmore Tuttle?
Or Gilmore Tuttle. The guy that played Gilmore Tuttle was actually banned for life from a league. Wasn't for violence though; it was for gambling. But Poodle played
Chief Screaming Chicken or whatever. Not Screaming, just
that's F Troop. No,
the big Tomahawk.
Screaming Buffalo.
Yeah, the big. Claire's Swamp Water.
He had a good career in several leagues. The CHL, I believe he played in the IHL.
But I think it was somebody had the Poodle was like for penalty minutes.
Yeah, and he did lead the league. It may not have been the ECHL, but it was one of those Eastern leagues.
And you have good stories. There's the guy from the St. Louis Blues who got finally to the NHL when he was in his late 30s in the 70s. After playing like all these years. That's like the mixed blessing. If you played in any of these leagues, you might have all these records, but you probably still just wish you played one game.
Well, like Les Binkley was the first goaltender for the Pittsburgh Penguins in '67. And they used to call him the 7th best goaltender in hockey.
Yeah, the Binker. And he was the first goalie who used contact lenses.
Yeah, but that's the irony. He was the 7th best goaltender in hockey.
And you go back and think when they had the original 6, how many very, very, very good players
never saw the light of day
could never
in the
make
NHL?
the NHL. So some of these leagues really were very competitive.
Like great case in point, the more recent Hall of Famer, Willie O'Ree, renowned as the first black man to play in the NHL, and I'm not going to call him African American because he's Canadian. But, he played, 15 games in the NHL? But he had an amazingly expansive career in various
and
minor...
Fred Saskamoose, and I'm not calling him American Indian because he was Canadian.
Yeah, he was Canadian.
He played 11 games in the NHL, but he had a huge career.
Or another one of our favorite people, Don Cherry.
Yeah.
1 game in the NHL. It was a playoff game for the Boston Bruins, but he had a legendary career in the minor leagues.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys, they really had whole careers doing this.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because when you had to be the cream of the crop to get into the NHL.
Absolutely, because I think in listening to other podcasts, Chris Jericho interviewed his father, Ted Irvin, who played in the NHL. He said you had to be something special to break in when there was only 6 teams and thousands of people vying for those 6 teams.
And people want, especially in Canada back then, wanted to see hockey. So you have your little leagues and everything.
Yeah, that's why every province had at least 2 leagues, either like a junior league or a minor league.
And you go back, one of my favorite things when I was a kid, we had Yvonne Lambert, who won a bunch of cups with the Canadians, and then ended up playing with the Amerks because still at that time, before major expansion, you couldn't get up there.
No, you really and the problem is once you got sent down, it was real hard to get back up.
And remember too, back then, where these days you're not going to see a Bryce Harper play for the Phillies farm teams unless he's on rehab.
Right.
Back then, they had 2-way contracts.
Yep. They
and
could send him
I used to
down
like to go through the hockey news, and you would see all these star players. I saw like Pat Boutette play for Binghamton Whalers.
Really?
Greg Malone too.
Oh, Greg Malone. That was a good player.
Yeah. And I remember this one guy going, Boutette, you're a loser. It's hockey.
Well, that is hockey.
Lots and lots.
Let us not forget, the great Tom Barrasso had a cup of coffee with the Amerks.
Yeah. Well, they're still going on, but I think part of the discussion is these are alternative leagues as well as defunct leagues.
It's not just defunct, but it's also alternative. If you're tired of the NHL or Major League Baseball, there are tons of other leagues. Like another one, actually, they're in, as we're recording this, they're right near the end of the playoffs, is the KHL, the Continental Hockey League over in Eastern Europe.
Well, imagine, wherever you go, there's the Alps League. Hockey is huge all over there.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, there's even the British Hockey League.
Which still I don't
understand.
I don't picture.
But no, the Continental Hockey League is mainly Russia, the former Soviet countries, and China has a few teams.
Yeah.
In the KHL, and so you're looking. There's some big players that came out of there.
Yeah. Now imagine if we just started a podcast that we called it in the middle. Well, that's the way switching gears here.
All right.
Well, there was a league in football.
Well, let's talk about football.
And we're gonna go backwards a little. We'll start with the recent one.
The most recent one is the demise of the Alliance of American Football, not through anything with the NFL, but through basically, if you read the news, the blatant lies of the ownership about how much money they actually had. And Steve Spurrier, who was the coach of Orlando, is pissed. He is angry.
The sad part...
Because he was enjoying himself.
The sad part about this is, okay, on the surface, it looked like they had a very good plan and a very good thing going. They were almost a farm. They were a chance for you to try to get back.
Yeah,
they advertised the league as... You can get back into the NFL. It's almost like an audition. If you're a younger guy, prove yourself.
Yeah, they were They were going to be the NFL's farm system. Like the NHL has the AHL and baseball has all the different minor leagues. This was going to be the NFL's farm system, and it suspended operations 8 weeks into a 10-week season.
And they were smart. It's on the surface because they signed you had a 3-year deal, $250,000 a year. The coaches made $500,000. The coaches are some good names.
Well, I mean, coach-wise, you had Steve Spurrier,
Mike Riley,
Dennis Erickson,
Mike Singletary, Rick Neuheisel.
And in assistant coaching position, you got Pete Metzelaars was an assistant coach
Lots
for
of
San
guys
Antonio.
were in. Even for the broadcast, it had a TV contract.
Rod Woodson was part of the
You
broadcasting.
had NFL guys all around.
Yeah, Hines Ward and Troy Polamalu were in the front office.
And my dad got a kick out of watching it. Did it be God?
Yeah, it was a fun game. I enjoyed watching it, and then it just went away.
Well, the one side, I guess...
Shit, even the original XFL made it through a whole season.
Yeah, but one of the things about that, too, is I guess some guys are getting signed, though.
Yeah, the NFL's been signing a lot of them, but they're still not allowed to sign with the CFL or with other football leagues.
Yeah.
They have to only go to the NFL, which is bullshit because they already
There's
violated.
no league, man.
Yeah. I mean, they've filed a lot of class action lawsuits have been filed against the ownership.
But we mentioned it's coming back, I guess, for some reason. I don't know why.
right.
The XFL.
Yeah. Well, to quote many a famous man, that's the rumor. That league was crap to begin with.
You knew it was in trouble when people were asking the question the first time around. Well, because Vince McMahon's involved, are the games going to be staged? And all I could say was, watching a couple of them, I wish they were staged because they would have been a lot more interesting.
Oh, it was terrible.
And that's the sad part about it. They tried to do it's old school hockey, old school football. I remember wanting to watch a game one day with Chicago and somebody. Perfect conditions, rainy, lousy, perfect football.
That's good football weather.
But the football was terrible.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. I think really, let's think, what would be the most successful parallel league? Would have been the AFL.
Yeah.
So good that it caused a merger.
And people don't remember that league is gone because it merged with the NFL.
Right.
And how many of these leagues have ever done that? But
in football, that was the only one.
Had the Super Bowl been a year earlier, you would have saw your Bills get killed by the Packers.
Right. But, because the AFL was basically the entire decade of the 60s, and that spawned a lot of the teams that we have now came out of there. The Bills, the Browns, the 49ers. Then there was the Miami Seahawks, who later became the Baltimore Colts when they came to the NFL. I'm sorry, that's AAF. The AAFC.
Well, because the Baltimore Colts were in the NFL.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, there was, but I was going to actually say what you mentioned there. There was the old AAF.
Yeah, the AAFC back in the 40s, and that's where they were the Buffalo Bisons. They became the Bills. But coming out of the AFL, you have the Broncos, the Chiefs.
Raiders.
The Raiders.
Chargers.
The Chargers.
Trivia for you. It's not named after a horse. It's named after a charge cart because that was the company of the team's owner.
Exactly. That was where he made his money. I remember the T-shirt back in the older days. It said the last time the Chargers were good, Dodge made them. That was a quality one. But the AFL was interesting because they not only competed right alongside with them, they literally competed direct head-to-head.
And you remember, of course, the New York Titans and Jets.
Right.
Who, of course, and that's the big thing, Joe Namath shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I'm sorry. Had the Jets lost that Super Bowl, nobody would have ever heard
But
of
what
Joe
happened
Namath.
when the Jets won that Super Bowl was they established the league as legitimate.
Right. They did.
And that was a big thing for them, where there was almost parity. But the thing, if you look at your modern NFL game, like it, don't like it, whatever else, go back to the AFL and pretty much they adopt, because that was a wide open passing league.
That's why my dad loved.
Because they would
AFL.
you would see a lot of guys
run and gun West Coast offense.
They would have probably a mediocre percentage for completions, a lot of interceptions. Why? Because they chucked the ball freaking 60, 70 yards all the time.
It's like, he threw 7 interceptions. Yeah, but he threw 74 times.
Yeah, and he threw it, and not only that, but they were like Hail Marys, and they were like glorified punts.
Yeah, that's all it was. It's like, it's 4th down, let's air it up and see what happens.
Daryl LaMonica, the Mad Bomber.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I mean, I've seen clips of it. Obviously, it merged with the NFL before the 1970 season.
But then there was, in the 70s, a short-lived WFL.
The WFL, the World... No, that was...
The WFA, whatever. That was the league that came in the middle of the 1970s. It basically ruined the Miami Dolphins because they signed away Larry Zonka and Jim Kick.
Oh,
the
God,
Birmingham
I remember
Bulls,
that. Yes.
It lasted for 2 years and then tanked.
As soon as you said that, I remember that now. Oh, my God.
Never seen a game in my life. All I've ever seen is sometimes a couple pictures of players posing in the uniforms.
That's it. There's like no physical evidence other than that league ever even existed.
And I could say Birmingham Bulls. Otherwise, I don't really even know. But it lasted for 2 seasons. They were trying, but they did ruin the Dolphins because
they definitely screwed
the
Dolphins
offered
there.
Big deals to Zonka, and then they ran out of money.
Yeah, a la AAF, apparently.
Yep. But then the other one that came into being, and I watched some of these, was the USFL.
My dad, Pittsburgh had a team.
The Maulers.
For 1 year, 1984 season, the Pittsburgh Maulers.
Mike Rozier.
I think he was probably the best player on that team.
Oh, I remember, because I used to go to Pittsburgh Penguin games at the old Civic Arena.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing on the radio they were advertising for the Birmingham Stallions against the Pittsburgh Maulers. And it was a case of Stout goes back to pass to Smith, intercepted, because Cliff Stout was the quarterback of the Birmingham Stallions.
Stout.
But those teams,
and a lot
on
of
the
good
front,
players,
because they paid money, so they got some quality guys out of the draft.
Reggie White started with
Jim Kelly,
the Memphis Steamboats.
Yep. Anthony Carter, Herschel Walker.
Oh, I forgot Herschel Walker was.
Yeah, the New Jersey Generals.
Yep.
Doug Flutie, who took some years to finally come around here,
well,
but
he honed his craft in the USFL.
Steve Young, LA Express.
Oh shit! I forgot Steve Young played for the USFL.
Yes, he played for the LA Express. Gary Anderson, the running back.
Running back.
Steve Spurrier, coaching the Tampa Bay Bandits.
Yep.
With John Reeves, the old Bucks quarterback.
And that league lasted for three seasons, 83 to 85.
But then they had the famous $2 because I guess there was a court suit.
Yep.
And this was infamously where, of all people, Donald Trump made his name because he was involved with the New Jersey Generals, I think.
He was.
And so the president's, one of his ventures there was a defunct football league.
Yeah, but wasn't really his fault.
But I would say watching those games, a lot of them weren't, and I would have liked to have taken an all-star team from that league and played an NFL team. I think it may have been very good because what I think the difference was a lot of their frontline talent was damn good and could play, but then they didn't have the depth.
That's what it was. They had they had their starters who were really good, but nobody to back them up, unlike NFL teams who have good depth at all levels.
Yeah. But then there's another one. I know about this more from my PS2 and PS3 games because we had them as teams. The World League.
The World League.
I remember the Rhine Fire.
Well, coached by the late great Hall of Famer Ernie Stautner, I believe. But now the World League was interesting because it started off as NFL. No, it started off as the World League. Then it became the World League of American Football. Then it became NFL Europe. And it basically ended, I think, 2007 it was NFL Europa.
Oh.
In 2007.
Wow.
But you had, and the weird thing is,
Barcelona Dragons.
Yeah, the Barcelona Dragons, the Frankfurt
London
Galaxy,
Knights.
The London Monarchs.
Okay, close.
It was and then for the World League, they had an awful lot of teams in the United States. Was it the Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks, coached by the legendary Roman Gabriel? I think it was the New York, New Jersey Knights.
That's the Knights.
Yeah, the New York, New Jersey. San Antonio had a team, the Express. Or the
all I remember is the Gamblers from the USFL.
Oh yeah.
No, the Houston Gamblers. There's San Antonio somethings.
Yeah, Stallions maybe, but that league, I don't understand. I mean, I can see.
I think it was the Wranglers. I think.
Yeah. I can see why it didn't work at the time, although now the NFL has its presence in
I think it's
Europe.
the novelty, though. People want to see the NFL games. They always put, like, some of the worst teams around. Usually get a Browns-Jaguars game or something.
Exactly. You get the Browns-Jaguars playing in London, but, the fact that this league existed, and it did bring some awareness of the game of American
But it did
football.
the other thing. The XFL, the one thing it did do is, for love him or hate him being a Steelers fan, Tommy Maddox revived his career.
He did. He was selling insurance in Texas was signed by the Las Vegas, whoever the hell they were.
I have no idea. I just know that he played in the XFL.
Yeah, Las Vegas Extreme or whatever the hell they were, and they won the $1 million game, the championship, and Tommy Maddox.
Ted DiBiase?
Yes,
something to do.
Tommy Maddox was the MVP and came out and had a pretty decent rest of his career with the Steelers.
I mean, he wasn't bad, but that's what the story in the whole World League, it was almost a minor league, but there's one name that stands out for me. That's Brad Johnson, the quarterback for the Vikings, the Redskins, the Bucs.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because he was a guy out of Florida State, and he was a backup, and they took him because he had a really strong arm, but he needed tutoring.
Yeah.
So what happened was...
like Rick Vaughn in Major League.
So what happened was he went off and played in that league. He got the start, and that's how he rose up in the NFL.
Right, and that's... A lot of people forget that these leagues serve a purpose where it's like old wrestling territories. You hone your craft before you get to the big show, which in this case was the NFL.
And there was one, I'm not even get the name right of this one. It's that Continental League or whatever it was. I remember Dennis Green and
it was
Dante Culpepper playing.
No, it was the oh god damn it. The UFL, the United Football League.
That's what it was?
Yeah, Dante Culpepper played in the UFL.
He played coached by this old coach, Dennis Green.
Yep.
And I have no idea, to be honest, what the heck happened to that one.
2-3 years, and I think it shit the bed. Maybe like 2011 or so.
Did you ever see a game?
No,
just popping like late night cable, even popping.
No, not even on ESPN, the Ocho would I ever see.
I would see indoor soccer games late at night even. I would see
Australian rules football.
If you still could explain,
please email us and explain the rules of Australian rules football.
But you mentioned it, and especially these days for pro wrestling, all the defunct things.
The old territories.
But there's also one I was going to bring up because you made me think of it for some reason. The whole era of USFL and everything else was, you may remember it, you may not. It had a presence briefly, but never went anywhere. It was the big counter promotion briefly on ESPN to counteract Vince McMahon Jr.'s new WWF with the Hulkster. It was Pro Wrestling USA.
I do not remember that at all.
What this was, it was the AWA Vern Gagne teaming up with some NWA guys, and they came up with this big federation which got a contract at ESPN and tried to work out of New York and try to get in. At the time, Sergeant Slaughter was huge. He left WWF because it became a case of, I have a contract with G.I. Joe.
Yeah, he was under contract with Hasbro.
And Vince said you can't do both.
Yeah.
So he said, I'll heck with you.
Yeah,
I'm
he said, see ya.
Because he was the first real person.
He was the first real G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Because that was sort of the generic name for your soldier in World War II. There's the early pile story, the story of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, G.I. Joe. Hey, Joe, because it was an easy name.
And
for
remember
a lot of
Sergeant Slaughter with the Cobra Corps? There was a cartoon.
Yep.
But he joined this, and the real big bad guy was a guy called Colonel De Beers, who was an evil South African.
Yeah.
And they tried to do events at NASA, Byrne Meadowland Arena, Madison Square Garden. They had a TV contract. I think Backlund was on there for a while.
Yeah, I have never heard of that one.
And it folded. I mean, you could find it.
I'm sure I can, but I've never
there's
even heard
all
of it.
these, obviously, the territories in the day are now defunct sports leagues.
Well, yeah, because you would have...
AWA.
Let's just throw out a couple. The AWA, Mid-South with the great Bill Watts.
Florida
with... Who was running Florida?
The Grahams.
Yeah, Mike Graham.
Graham.
Not Mike, Eddie.
Well, Mike was his son or something. St. Louis was Sam Muchnick.
The Carolinas with Jim Crockett, and he became WCW.
Yep.
Then you had... There was
like L.A. and everything.
Yeah, up in Maine.
That's actually...
Yeah, you had L.A.,
well,
which
you
was
had
run
Oregon,
by Leo Nomalini.
And down there, actually, one of the places down there, that's where really Roddy Piper got his start.
Yeah, in Portland with... Oh, Christ, who was in charge of Portland?
I don't know who was involved, but you know who was involved there? Russ Francis' dad.
Yeah, can't remember his name, but yeah, Russ Francis, the all-world tight end.
But there's a lot, because that's a lot now when you hear people complain about how bad wrestling is. They love the smaller promotions.
Yeah, Ring of Honor.
Ring of Honor just did something. They've been selling out Madison Square Garden.
Have been. I think they're teaming with All Japan and New Japan.
And they have, actually, there's supposed to be this new wrestling league coming up now.
Oh, we just looked it up, and I can't remember what the
But
name
it's
of it was.
supposed to be, supposedly, it's funded by the owner from the Jaguars, who has lots of money.
Yeah, that guy has money to literally burn.
They've already got Chris Jericho. They've got Cody Rhodes, so I guess Cody Rhodes has become huge on the independent circuit.
Not just him, but they've got Kenny Omega.
Who's supposed to be the big guy.
Shit up.
They've had rumors about Dean Ambrose, but it looks like he's going to stay now.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere, but... No, Kenny Omega and Jericho and Cody Rhodes, those are three really big names for this.
And talk about defunct, and as we've talked about before, the good old TV wrestling studio days.
Yeah, studio wrestling in Pittsburgh ended years ago, long before. Rochester had studio wrestling.
Yeah.
I think every city pretty much had studio wrestling.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they did. And it's unfortunate that most of them weren't taped.
Or taped over.
Yeah. But one of the things, too, going back to baseball a little, one we don't think about a lot, I thought about it because of wrestling, actually, because of Sid Vicious. Sid used to play for Steele's All-Stars, a softball team. There were pro softball teams around, and we used to go see one here. We used to see where there's a Rochester one we used to go see all the time.
But actually, speaking of that, to tie it into wrestling again, Braun Strowman, his father is a Hall of Fame slow-pitch softball player. Like the most home runs of anybody in senior softball, in semi-pro softball.
And then if you ever see fast pitch softball, it's something else the way they whip that ball in.
Oh Jesus! I think it was through that in the Olympics that began my lifelong crush with Jenny Finch.
Oh, Jenny Finch, yeah.
Oh God, it was impossible to see her pitch. I mean, it was amazing.
Oh, I know. I've seen it. It's amazing. And now, talking about alternative leagues that are gone now, they've said they've served their purpose. Plus, they're all little fun things. And I'm sure if you look around and do a lot more research, if you feel it, if you're interested, there's probably croquet leagues. There's probably these mini little things all over the place that are semi-pro.
Yeah, semi-pro or amateur
or like some old dudes who want to play football or...
Yeah, well, that was the AAF for a time.
I have to bring one up. You may have forgotten this one too, but it only ran for a while. Now, the sad part about this, there's a book about it. I think it died after 2 or 3 years because so many of the players ended up just coming up with injuries. They used to have an old-timers pro league for baseball.
I
remember
that.
it?
Yep.
And the thing was, all these guys came out who were retired and played, and the problem, sort of sad, funny.
You call it like the Golden League
Yeah,
or something?
the Golden League, and it was a real thing.
I remember
and
it.
The sad, funny part was a lot of guys ended up pulling hammies, getting hurt.
A lot of big names played in that league. And there were some stacked teams if you look at the rosters.
And I think it came out of almost like fantasy leagues, because what happens sometimes in your pro baseball, your major league teams, they have these packages. If you're like some guy who's trying to live his childhood and what may have been, you can go play down in Florida with some of the old timers.
Yeah.
But this was a real league. And it had all these old players who just ended up getting hurt because it was a sport and they were old, and that's how it happened.
Yeah. But I remember that league, and I'm trying to think. There was some big name.
There was Greg Nettles. He played.
Yeah, Greg Nettles.
There were a lot of names. Literally, if you saw the league, you would remember almost every one of them. If you looked at your 70s baseball cards. Yeah. And I don't think they had an age limit, so you had some guys just in their early 40s and some guys pushing 60.
Yeah, you had some legit old-timers.
I think Phil Necro probably played because he was still clucking around with that knuckleball.
It wasn't shy. Yeah, with the knuckleball, you can pitch until the day you die.
Yeah, you hope there's never like a senior boxing league or
God, give it time.
You know, like that. But that was something. And sometimes I look at that for the fun. You know, that's what Guy Lafleur said when he came out of retirement. He said playing pickup hockey wasn't enough. You're only going to do it for so long.
Right.
Brett Favre, love him or hate him with his little hem and hawing, he made the point one time that got to me where he said, look, when you retire, you're never going to do it again.
Exactly. That's why he retired 6 times.
Or like Michael Jordan came out of retirement because they're there. But I think some of these offer things for people who like to play.
That's what it is. And and that's why I think the sad part is with the more of these leagues coming and especially going, it's just taking away the opportunity for people that actually love the game to really play it.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
I think that's what happens, though. They get a good idea. I think that's the problem. I always call it bigism in this society.
Right.
Where somebody latches on an idea, I can make money out of this, and they got to pop it all up.
And then they fucking ruin it for everybody else.
It was like a little weird little cult thing that people just dug.
Yeah. And they did.
Yeah.
But
I'll be going to a Muck Dogs game this year.
hell yeah, back to the Muck Dogs
And
game.
again, I tell you, go see your Yankees. Would Aaron Judge ever hand you a bag of sunflower seeds?
Exactly.
When that guy's in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to say,
I'm gonna
hey,
sell those
look at these sunflower seeds. So those are just some of the leagues. Look them up. And everything else.
That's it. Look them up. And if there's something interesting, give us an email. Because I know there's stuff I missed.
Oh, there's so many more.
Oh, yeah.
So many more. And then you go to other countries, can you imagine?
Oh, God.
And all the leagues that played. And then you ever meet like the old guy, the old athlete. Well, I played in this league, and I'm a Hall of Famer in this.
I played in the Iron Leagues and all this shit. It's
Yeah,
like, I want to know about the Iron
Or you
League.
see a guy like at a bar, hey, what's the picture of these dudes? Oh, they're from the 50s. We played in this league.
Yeah.
They're all around.
So look out for them. And also, give us a prediction. If anybody wants to comment, give us a prediction. What would be a funny or new funny league?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing it, but much like the AAF, we got to cut this one short.
We're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of jokes. We're out of time. So keep on sporting. Rob, you have anything to close it out?
Yeah, I suppose we're the alternative podcast league to the bigger ones.
Well, there you go. Alternative podcasting, and that be that. We'll see you next time.